existing public building that's currently not being used and said that can help defer some of the costs for that improvement. Because of market conditions, we haven't sold it yet or even declared it surplus. The process is that it has to be declared surplus first and then offered to redevelopment, I think, school and the priority list. But because it actually has a market value that we think we could actually find a way to pay back the customers on that without double charging them. The reason I say double charging, if we, well, I won't make that point. Thanks, okay. You've already got it. But I have to say with honesty, because the staff report that I've already written up is a recommendation to take advantage of that asset with to offset our current expenses.
I understand. Well, we'll let staff discuss that. I think there's a counter to that, but I'll let staff negotiate that.
Mrs. Horton.
Thank you. Am I talking now? Is the West End operating in the black right now?
It is.
It is totally in the black for the water and sewer?
No, let me make a qualification for those accountants in the room and for those folks that understand depreciation. Depreciation is a book expense, and our current rate does not fully cover depreciation, but it covers enough of that expense that we're keeping up with R&R and also putting away some dollars for the future. So it's in the red on the financial statements, but that's primarily because it's fully because of depreciation of assets. Our board has made a very conscious decision on both water and sewer to not fully fund depreciation.
And then, so can you explain why your district would be saying to comply with the state law it would cost 66 and some odd dollars a year, and ours were saying 86? I think that's roughly the right numbers.
I don't recall the specifics in that report or how much that report is recommending to fund depreciation or how much of that rate, the $7 and something per month, is being set aside for future repairs and replacements and for that component. I don't recall your rate study, how much of your rate would be put aside for future repairs and replacements.
Yeah, it really wasn't that much. And this is just sort of like a generic question about development within the city. When a project comes into the city and they want to put in 200 or 300 homes on a hillside, and they have to come to the water district, they have to come to the city and a number of agencies to make sure that it fits within the plan and if they comply. Has there ever been a project that's come through the city that you've denied?
Yeah, actually, again, they've had to, as you're probably aware, we haven't denied, but we've put the conditions and requirements for capital infrastructure and capital upgrades on that development as a condition of development. Vista Del Verde is a classic example. They paid entirely for the capital assets, both water and sewer, in terms of upgrades downstream or full sewer trunks and collection systems, all the way, chasing them all the way to the Orange County Sand District connection points, because our system wasn't designed for capacity of that. Same thing on the water side. They fully funded the water improvements, the transmission pipes. They paid for a well down at down at our Richfield plant. They paid for transmission improvements as we were bringing them up through the community. They paid for new reservoirs in their developments. So it's been a pay-as-you-go system, particularly the sewer, and developments are required to either pay their share in capital that already exists if the capacity exists, or in new capital and upgrades.
Now, is it ever a consideration, knowing that we're in a drought and a lot of it has to do with what's happening up north, does that ever play into your determination of a project in the number of homes being allowed into a community, realizing that there's a drought situation? You understand me?
Yes, I think I do. Anyway, I'll try to answer your question. You can tell me whether I understood or not. We're actually mandated by law, too. Depending on the size of the development and the water demands of that development, we're mandated to look into the future for the supply, that a reliable supply that community can develop on. So if it doesn't exist, in fact, they have to find that or generate some offset somehow to say, well, we've got the water through water transfers somewhere else, or we bring this to the table. So I'm probably not going to get this the ABs correct, but I want to say AB 220 and 610. I'm not sure if those are the right references, but oh, they are. Okay, good. 221. We're required again to do a water supply assessment actually on those developments. Now there is a threshold in equivalence too for commercial developments and for larger development areas with fewer dwelling units but the same amount of water need. There's equivalence, if you will. So if they're large lots with a lot of landscaping needs and they meet that same threshold, then that requirement exists. Now, even beyond that requirement, we are in a drought situation. You're absolutely correct. We've got restricted supplies, partially because of judicial issues. Some of the environmental issues, work their way out a little bit, but not the judicial issues, because so much of our water supply comes from the north. Those challenges, I think, as a community, Orange County, all of Southern California, Central California, are going to really need to grasp a hold of that. But what you've done in part is, and what we've done in part, is passed a water conservation ordinance. You folks have adopted a landscaping ordinance, so that new communities can't go in the same way that they used to. They have to take into consideration this precious resource of water and find ways to use less.
So does your ordinance somehow restrict the potential of a higher use in a particular area, or do you look at higher use in a particular area as a good thing because there's not as much landscape?
We actually look at all of the above. So the water conservation ordinance is primarily about reducing water waste. And we've gotten complacent over the years. I think that this community in particular has done great just within a year and a half of really changing their habits about wasting water. The combination of the ordinance for new development, landscaping ordinance, I mean, that's huge gains, because 65 to 70% of all the water we're using in this community do go, to water plants and landscaping. There's a lot of options out there that you can do more with less, and our building is a classic example of that, just by more efficient systems, both on the plant palette and in the way that we deliver water to those plants.